was like this period of 2 months that was just an extreme whirlwind crash course, like hyperbaric chamber of swim run preparation that I could have never dreamed of when I emailed this guy. So I went from like this yacht club little 3 mile swim around to like Phil and Andy taking me on this like dangerous cliffside La Jolla swim run for my first true swim run, and then training with them like at least twice a week until Austin. And then at Austin, meeting you guys, everyone. I think Dominic was there because this was the last race when the race was as Odyssey and Attila was taking over. And so there was just like a lot of personalities there, a lot of important people there. I met Lars, I met you guys, I met people who had been in the sport a long, long time. It was really quite a whirlwind, even just getting there. And I just felt so lucky to be there.
Welcome to the Low Tide Boys, a Swimrun podcast. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris. And this is episode 305 of the show. We have an extra special guest with us this week, Tynan, who is at a Swimrunner Extraordinaire, done world champs a bunch of times, a close friend of ours. We've shared many meals, many travels, many international flights together. It's long overdue. Chipper and I have been talking about for, I don't know, a year. It's like, oh, we got to get Mara on. I was like, when's it happening? Well, it's happening, people. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Super excited and honored to be here.
The honor is ours.
That is true. The honor is all ours.
So, the place where we usually start these conversations is like, let people know a little bit about you. So why don't you tell us kind of your athletic CV,
Pedigree.
Share with us your athletic CV and kind of like how you found Swimrun, which is, I think that's even a pretty cool story.
Yeah, definitely. I consider my athletic career as going back to a very young age. My parents were determined to make sure both me and my brother learned how to swim. So I believe I was 8 or 9 months old when my parents had me in the water, just learning, being comfortable, and then ultimately in lessons pretty young. And then I started swimming when I was 5 because I was so sick of sitting at my brother's swim meets and sweating on the hot pool deck that I was like, why can't I just be a part of this too? But my mom made me ask the coach myself, big, scary guy I had never met before. And at 5 years old, she made me go up to him and ask if I could be on the team. So that was the start of my lifelong swimming career. I swam all the way through high school and then Division III in college. And I did not take long off before I was back in the pool after my college career ended. But I also kind of started weaving running in there in tandem as well. So I ran briefly in middle school, track and cross country, and at one point held the unofficial middle school mile record at like 6:10 or something like that. Promptly stopped running after that.
Nice.
Basically by 7th grade was just swimming full time.
I mean, you hit the mountaintop.
Yeah.
You're at the
finish on
you
top.
Retire at the top.
Got the records. See you in 8th grade.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I just have to catch me at the pool, I guess. And I would run during the off season of swimming too, like in college. It was easier to run. It was less stressful to run between seasons because swimming had become kind of stressful for me in the pool. So after college, I focused more on the running, did my first couple half marathons, and ultimately trained for my first road marathon, and was starting to turn my interest to trails when my friend Isabella, who, by the way, is an insane marathon distance swimmer. She's done multiple swims over 10, 15, 20 miles. But she was like, have you heard of this sport called Swimrun? And was showing me videos and the Attila website and all this stuff. And, I kind of tucked it away of like a one day kind of dream. One day, like that'll be for me. These races are kind of hard to get to. It's kind of intimidating. You need all this gear, stuff like that. And somehow I got from one day to maybe I'll kind of pull my time and resources and do Austin. That's the easiest one to get to, just like a flight and a short drive. I started listening to you guys, doing a lot of research, and you had interviewed Andy Hewitt on the podcast many times. And so I was listening to an interview with Andy in which he very emphatically said, if anyone in the San Diego area is at all interested in Swimrun, they can reach out to me. And then he did not leave his email address or any contact information in that podcast episode or
Was it in the
interview.
show notes?
Yeah.
Well,
I
it
don't think it
doesn't
was in
really
the show.
exist. It
It's like,
doesn't
just
really
find me.
exist, right?
Just find me.
Yeah. Yeah. Which for anyone that knows
Ironically,
Andy,
he is a guy who can be found.
for anyone that knows Andy, that tracks very well. Like he both can and can't be found. He is and
Yeah.
isn't known. I did track him down, sent him an email, asked for some beginner tips, and he said, why don't we meet up and do a swim run together? We did a very short practice swim run together. I was immediately hooked, and I later find out that he in his head is like, she's going to be a good partner.
Well,
so he
here's-
locked me down.
This is very important.
We got
This
to
is
time
very
out on
important for
this.
people to know. The Godfather, he was, of course, embodying the spirit of Swimrun we know and love. Why don't you come out? I'll just show it to you. But there was also an ulterior motive, which he's
Yes.
always seeking to groom the next perfect female mixed partner. Which a little bit of foreshadowing. I
It's
think
some
he
pipeline
succeeded
going, yeah.
because you've been like an amazing partner to him. Like he'll be the first to say it. You've been the best swimmer partner he's had, and the most consistent, and just a joy to race with. So,
Yeah.
but it has to be said that there were two motives, one altruistic and one very much self-serving.
Yes. So you were living in San Diego at this time after college when you were kind of getting into the ultra marathon scene there. So you were already in the, unbeknownst to you, in the San Diego swim run circles.
Yes, there was this whole circle going on around me that I just hadn't tapped into. And, I was still am in grad school and was finding myself with a lot of time flexibility. So it was kind of a good time to be getting into the long distance endurance events because you're working really hard in grad school, but you also have a lot more flexibility over your schedule and things like that. So with Andy and Phil and our little crew down there, we often do Friday morning swim runs that can turn into breakfast, that can turn into late morning. So it's good to have a flexible schedule if you're going to be training with that crew.
Yeah. And so you said you took to it right away. I would imagine obviously you have a tremendous love for swimming after starting from such a young age. And, before we hopped on, I was thinking, hey, whenever you talk to someone that's like, oh, I swam through college and my whole life, they get really kind of burnt out on swimming. And it still seems like the love for swimming is there, but having that love and then marrying it with kind of the trail running adventure aspect seems like it really just kind of clicked for you. Is that a correct assessment?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I think that for me, something that was also coming into this at the same time that is seemingly unrelated, but the more I think about it is closely related, is I was also getting into travel at the time, going on solo trips at like 22, 23, 24 years old, and just like seeing what the world had out there for me. And I felt that competitive sports, like in the pool specifically, or even like road races, were very limiting. And it's like, there's so much of this world I want to see. And the second that I realized Swimrun could show me a different side of places either I'd been before or I'd never even dreamed of going to, it became more and more obvious that that adventure aspect was particularly important to me, and that Swimrun could scratch that itch from all sides.
Yeah, so
I
let's
like
talk
that.
about that first swim run race, which I think we met you at a pizza place. Is that
Oh
the
yeah,
first time that we
that's
connected?
right. It's at the
That
whatever
sounds
the one
right.
is there in Pace Bend Park, that restaurant that
Yeah,
we
it's
eat at
like,
every year, and we'll eat at again on Saturday.
yes. I still don't remember the name of it though. The pizza place
Yeah.
is the one where it's part like bar, concert venue, mini concert venue,
Oh,
and then
that's
it's
right.
also,
Mhm.
But we
I
also did
bet that
have
is
lunch at
where
the
we met.
Lighthouse with you, I think.
yeah, we've certainly had
And
lunch
I
at the
remember,
Lighthouse.
yeah.
So that was your first race. You mentioned that you listened to our show and it did not lead you astray, which is like We'll just take that W for us real quick. Tell us about that first experience because, I mean, obviously, fast forward several years, two world championships later, like
You're quite
you took
accomplished.
to it.
Yeah. Yes,
But
that's fair.
so we know the ending. Well, why don't you fill in some context for us on how it went?
Yeah, yeah. That whole from when I met Andy, I believe it was right after he had finished world champs in that year, which must have been 2023. So it was like September that we met. So from then until November, so it was like this period of 2 months that was just an extreme whirlwind crash course, like hyperbaric chamber of swim run preparation that I could have never
Yeah.
dreamed of when I emailed this guy. So I went from like this yacht club little 3 mile swim around to like Phil and Andy taking me on this like dangerous cliffside La Jolla swim run for my first true swim run, and then training with them like at least twice a week until Austin. And then at Austin, meeting you guys, everyone. I think Dominic was there because this was the race, the last race when the race was as Odyssey and
Mhm.
Attila was taking over. And so there was just like a lot of personalities there, a lot of important people there. I met Lars, I met you guys, I met people who had been in the sport a long, long time. So it was really quite a whirlwind, even just getting there. And I just felt so lucky to be there. But the second that the race gun went off, Andy tells this story better than I do, but he was like, "You were off like a gun." And he reminded me to slow down. He was like, "I can't go that fast. We shouldn't be going that fast." And he says he watched my face drop as we just like moved to like middle, like front back of the pack as everyone just sprints towards that first swim. And he said he could see it on my face. And then we get into that first swim and we just passed like at least half the teams that were in front of us on that first swim. And we get out of the water and he looks at me, and apparently my face looked incredibly different than from the beginning of that swim. So I think that being able to kind of navigate through a part of Austin I didn't even know existed, really feel like I was like crushing the swims. I was competent at the swims. This was a strength that I had, at least for this one race, was a part of what attracted me to it. And then that's the first and only race that Andy and I placed first at. So winning that race was definitely kind of another drop in the bucket of like, wow, I'm good
Wow.
at this sport, at least among the
Yeah,
people
I
that were
think I
here at
like
this
it. I
race
won my
today.
first race.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I'll do
think this is
another
all
one.
right.
Yeah, twist my arm. And then just the
Nice.
community.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that year in particular, very much like, we've been joking since like Fort Collins, it's like the Swimrun Circus comes to town. Certainly was like, they pitched like, it was under the big top at Austin that year because there was just a lot going on. I think we did a live podcast with
Yeah.
Dominic and Lars that year. It was super fun. It was a super fun year for that race.
It was a good time. I think that was also PR and hair length. I remember Chris on mine. Mine was pretty long at that
Yeah.
time. You and Andy really took to it as a team, and being on the observing you all race. I think you, at least from what I've seen in the past couple of years, Andy has really challenged himself to become quite a formative swim runner himself, physically getting in amazing shape to like keep that frown from appearing again when you're racing together. So you've really awoken the beast in Andy, and he's in tremendous shape these days. Was the world championship on your mind after that first race? I'm sure it sounded like you had probably been watching the videos, but I'm sure Andy kind of popped that
It was
question
on
to you
Andy's
relatively
mind.
quickly. It was definitely on
It was on
Andy's
Andy's
mind.
mind.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like he got lucky on this one because he in that first email to me said, "I'm between partners for the world championship." And when I read that email, I was like, there's no way. There's no way this guy who has never met me, purely based on an email I sent him. I have read that email back. It was very well written, and it made a good case for my potential in the sport. But I was like, there's no way this is going to work out. This is in Sweden. I'd have to get time off of grad school. Like I would have to train for this. I've never done anything longer than a marathon. But
Hmm.
after that race and then finding out about the process of like putting in the application, swim run Christmas, And then just, we have several months to get that training in. And Andy's one of the most experienced people at doing that race. He'd get me there. And so I think the fact that he had so much faith in me got me really excited that, like, not only is this something that could happen in the next year, but it's something that he believes, someone this experience believes that I could work my way to. So it really just became something that I was just all in on the second that we put in that application.
Yeah, and I
Nice.
think to Andy's credit, to in his testament, he was right.
Yes.
Right? He was right. I mean, he'll say it. You've been an amazing partner. As Chipper mentioned, he's worked really hard to almost be worthy of racing with you. Now, you've raced with other people. We were at Whistler, I forget who you raced with, what her name was, but you guys won that women's race. And that was actually super fun because we raced with you guys for
Yeah,
a
that was a
decent
fun
amount of
time.
that race, which was super enjoyable. But you know, when we talk about this actually happened. Chipper, I don't remember where it was. We were with Phil Selkoff, also from the San Diego Swimrun crew, and we are like, hey, if you were doing a draft of, for mixed partners, like who are you picking at the top of the draft? And I think Phil was like, well, Kelsey first, but Chipper, you and I were like Mara.
Yeah.
She's our freaking number one pick if there's like a draft for mixed partners. And I think part of that isn't that you have the chops, like you're an awesome swimmer and you obviously know how to swim run, you're super experienced, but it's also like the communication piece, the teamwork piece. So you've raced with other people, you've raced with Andy, you've managed Andy on big races, got him through tough times. Like that's the other part of swim run,
Yeah.
which as like Chipper and I are getting older and more seasoned, you know, it's swimming and running and swim running. And it's also like the interpersonal team dynamic. If you can keep that in a really good place, like that actually will literally enhance your performance because you're able to do more because everyone's in kind of like a good headspace. And I think that part of it, given your background, academically, that's something that you also bring to the table. So I'm curious, like, is that something that you think about when you're, planning for Attila or another big race?
Yeah, definitely. I think that that's something that I myself have watched myself grow in throughout the sport, and having the privilege of working with the same partner so consistently, which I know you both understand, having done so many races together, of being able to learn that partner and learn yourself through being reflected by that partner, but then also exploring other partnerships and seeing what you can learn from those, both for yourself, but to bring back to your original partnership as well. And so I think when Andy and I started racing together, it was a clear mismatch in experience. He, one of the most experienced swim runners in North America, me having never done a swim run, but having kind of the swimming power and endurance and speed there, and knowing what I brought to the table there, I was just very much like, yes, sir, I will do whatever you recommend is best. Very just good listener, and could execute. Like, you point me in the right direction, I will swim there, and that's all I need to do.
I'll lead
And
all the swims. You say nothing.
yes.
That sounds perfect, by the way. That sounds
Yeah,
great.
Chris is like, into that.
Yeah, I call Andy my GPS sometimes. But yeah, I think, like, as we've raced together and as we've grown together, and like I've seen Andy in lower moments and higher moments, and I kind of know what reaches him during those moments, I become a more effective partner. And I think one of my favorite parts of the sport is seeing him succeed and achieve something he didn't think possible. And I think I first experienced that role of partnerships in World Champs of 2024, when he was not feeling great going into the last island. We were coming off the last swim, getting onto the last island. I knew we had a little bit over 2 miles left, and he was not looking great, as one does not look great at the end of the world champs.
Yeah,
And we
Happens
start
to the best
running
of
at,
us.
it happens to all of us,
I've been there.
honestly. We start trotting off at like 14-minute per mile pace. And I this was selfish. I was like, I cannot keep running for another 30 minutes. I need to get this finished in about 20. And so, but I was also thinking about like, how can I get the most out of this guy who's suffering and who I care about and who carried me, I failed to mention earlier in the race when I had my low moment earlier in the race. And I tested some different things out, but ultimately landed on something that I could tell resonated with him. And we were going 11-minute per mile pace, and then we were going 10, and then we were going 9. And then all of a sudden he's pulling me because he's pushing 8:30 pace per mile at
Wow.
at like a mile and a half in. And we end up running up that last hill and we cross the finish line running. And he told me that he has never finished the world champs. This was his 9th time, and he had never finished it, or one almost double digits time, and he had never finished it running. He had never finished that hill running. And that's what told me like, oh, I did something special there that was able to help him and plays
Mhm.
well into my skill set, because that's where my brain goes. As you alluded to, I'm a clinical psychology PhD student, and I've done at this point hundreds, if not thousands of hours of clinical work. And so thinking about what makes people tick and what motivates people and what people like to hear, might benefit from hearing, is something that comes very naturally to me. And then something I've also received schooling and experience in as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why you're the number one draft pick. First
And
one
you
off the
lead all the
board.
Well,
swims. Yeah.
I'm honored, by the way.
Well, a funny story to go with that. In Whistler, you raced in the female category, and I think Andy was, who knows, Andy was off doing something.
He was hiking the
Oh yeah, the
Pacific Coast
Pacific
Trail
Coast
something.
Trail with
I
his
don't know.
cousin or brother or something. But after the race we had like a meetup at this brewery, and then like three or four other people came up to you, Mara, and was like, "Oh, who are you racing with next year?" Was like, "Oh, really inquisitive around. Are you available to race with in the future? Because you just won the female category at Whistler and had a great performance. So yeah, it was definitely fun. And what you touched on there is really, obviously swim run has a solo category, but the sport originated as a team sport there. And we've said this many times that I feel like I get more out of myself with Chris than if it was just me out there doing that. And it's like 1 + 1 = 3 kind of scenario. And I
Mhm.
feel like you would kind of agree with that statement. And I feel like you've also kind of experienced that same thing about you were able to get more out of Andy in that last on Uto than he could have got just out there solo by himself.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it is one of the most unique aspects of the sport and of the experience, and also one of the most underrated aspects. I think that with swim run, what people struggle with is that speed kind of has to come second, if not third. I mean, for me, I think speed is third, which is sounds wild for me to be saying, because I'm extremely competitive. And for me, it's like number one is partnership and investing in being a good partner on the course and supporting and learning how to be supported. Number two is adventure and nature and being out in these beautiful places. And then third is speed. And I think if people were to hear that, they would say, oh, must not be a very competitive sport, or people don't have the right mindset about it. But to me, that's all wrong. One and two serve three. Partnership and loving what you're doing
Right.
and the sense of adventure serve the speed. And I have accomplished things in swim run, and swim run has led me to accomplish things that I wouldn't have even considered possible by myself. And so without the partnership, without the adventure, I never would have, the speed would have never come.
Yeah.
I really value it.
I hadn't thought about it that way before. And I think that explains a lot, Chipper, like our performances, because we always feel like we kind of punch above our weight class. And I think it's because, yeah, maybe we're not the fast. You can always swim and run faster, but
Yeah.
we have the other stuff pretty dialed in, which contributes to the third. So yeah, maybe we don't have the speed, but we're moving through the course quicker because We transition better. We have our communication dialed, so we're not wasting energy or time doing random things, which contributes to the speed. And then certainly if you can swim and run faster, then you do better. But I hadn't thought about it that way, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've certainly gone through lots of hours, experience hours together. Chris said it's like, hey, in Colorado, I don't need to say, oh, how are
Yeah.
you feeling right now? I can just sense how that is because we've logged 10 years of endurance training together.
For sure. And I also think it probably became more apparent, Chipper. It was certainly apparent for me because, and Mara, I'm curious what you would think about this too, having raced with other partners, at least in one other case. It's like, like I was more sort of present as to what I've learned from other partners when I was racing with you, and it became obvious like where our became easier for me to see where our strengths lie,
Mm,
because it's like, oh yeah, this is how Emily races, or this is how Annie races, and it's different than the way Chipper races, but I also know how Chipper races, so I was
yeah.
able to kind of have a little bit more insight into what might work, what I could do different to help him, also have him help me. And certainly our communication style is something that continues to evolve, and racing with other people kind of helped inform that.
Yeah. I think that the other thing that's interesting in the context of racing with other people, gaining that experience, but having kind of a partner that you do most of your racing with, is that you also have the opportunity to think past just a single race. I think a lot of times in other
Mm,
sports or other disciplines, it's like, I'm training for this 50K or I'm training for this triathlon or whatever it may be, but you're not really thinking like past that. Whereas with Swimrun, if you're training consistently with the same partner, and if you do race with a different partner to come back to that original partner, you're really thinking long term. And so,
mhm.
as you said before, both Andy has come a long way in being motivated by my partnership, but I have also been motivated to gain fitness to also serve him better as a partner and also to work on some things on the communication side as well to become a better partner. And so I had said earlier, those first few races, it was, yes, sir, whatever you need, we're doing this, like whatever you tell me to do, I will just do it. And as I've grown in my experience and my kind of like just my like assurance in the sport and that I have more to offer than just being a fast swimmer. I now also have experience
Mhm.
and psychological care and preferences and like different training and fueling experiences. As I've learned what I
Yeah.
have to offer, I've become a different partner over especially the last year. I've learned when it's appropriate to say, I have something that I want heard, or I need something, or this is what I think would really help both of us. And so that is something that can only come about iteratively. And there's very few
Mhm.
sports that allow you to have that
Yeah.
experience with the same person.
You've
Yeah, for
certainly
sure.
gained a tremendous amount of confidence in your swim running abilities, for certain. It's certainly a couple trips to the world champs will definitely do that for you. But yeah, kind of the, oh yeah, oh what should I be doing, and waiting on Andy to kind of direct that. And now you're doing more of the pulling. You're kind of doing more of the steering and the quarterbacking sometimes, at
Yep.
least kind of what I've seen out there on the course. And that's really cool to see your evolution in the sport and how you've grown and gained a tremendous amount of confidence in the couple of years that you've been in it.
Yeah, and it's like it's that, and I think it's also like, yeah, so you get the self-confidence from the experience, but I think one of the things that you were alluding to, Mara, it's kind of like your own sense of self-efficacy, which is layman's terms, it's kind of like having your own back, like trusting your own judgment. Like that increases as well because you've done hard things, you've navigated different environments, and like the self-confidence plus the self-efficacy kind of results in you coming out of this experience as a different person, and dare I say a better person.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. I think swim run has for sure made me a better person across all the different parts of my life. I think I'm a better communicator with my friends and my partner because I've had to learn how to communicate better when we're both not in the best place. And that translates really well to professional life, social life, all of these different things. And even across
Yeah.
sports disciplines. Like I had the privilege of running the Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim this year. And I started with one partner who agreed to do rim to rim with me, which is 21 miles, which is what I had planned to do, but decided to run it back the other way as well, and was partnered with a different person coming back for that. And I think being able to kind of drop in with that first partner, communicate with her, support her, be supported by her, receive information from her, and then switch to a completely different person and be able to have a similar experience is so rare. And
Yeah.
I didn't realize it until I got to the end and I talked to some people in one of the other groups, and they were like, honestly, it didn't go well for me from the start. I didn't know how to communicate with the people that I was running with. And they had a couple people stop at the halfway point when they had meant to go the full way. So what a gift that is that
Mm.
Swimrun's given me,
Yeah.
given all
I
of
mean,
us.
It's a
there's
gift
nothing
that
like
keeps on giving.
being physically dragged by a rope across swims and runs to, like, hey, you just got to tell it how it is. I mean, certainly I had that experience in my my race in France. I mean, Olivier, we there was like a severe language barrier, and I was cooked. I was blowing up and bonking my brains out, and he's like, too fast, Tripper. I'm like, way too fast, buddy. We gotta pull this back a little bit here. But I mean, that was like almost out of necessity. I needed to figure a way out to communicate that we needed to slow down and kind of be able to regroup on the race. There are way too many croissants before that race, that's for sure.
Yeah, Chipper
But
started
anyway,
like miming.
certainly Swimrun is it's just such a unique. I'm pressed to find another athletic experience that really strips you down so much, and it's just so kind of raw through the course or through nature, which really accelerates that communication and getting
Yeah,
that. You got to get it right if you're going to make through it in a good way.
for sure. So obviously, a lot of what we've just been talking about almost, implies that you're actually racing this with someone else, right? The team aspect. And I feel like as I've raced with other partners, it's just further cemented my fervor for being a purist of the sport and making sure that people try it as a team. Solo categories are great. I was at several races this year where the solo categories essentially like had taken over. There was more solo people than there were teams. Whistler this year had two men's teams. One of the teams came over from Italy or something. And I was like, hey guys, I'm like, don't fuck this up. It's like you guys are in for at least second. Don't fuck it up. They're like, oh, what? I'm like, never mind. Have a great race. Like I'm like, sorry. But it's like it's great that solo category exists. It's a great feeder to get into the sport. But I think like we need to do a better job of, I mean, continuing to have these conversations as to the benefit both in racing and in experience of doing the like racing as a team, which is the original intent. So if you think the sport is cool, you should definitely race as a team at least once. But I'm curious, Mara, given everything we've been talking about of like all these almost like ancillary benefits you get from the sport, like what how do we convince people, how do we convince more people to like, take the leap and race with someone? I know it requires some vulnerability, and if you're used to doing time trials, that's tough. I mean, it
Yeah.
certainly helped Chipper and I when we started. Like we were friends going in. We know we're lucky in that respect that we had like this kind of built-in, friendship for each other. We're already training buddies, but it's hard. I mean, when you met Andy, it's like, Andy is like what, 30 years older than you, something like that. That's a huge difference, right there. But you're still able to make it work. So I don't know. I just want you to help me solve this problem.
Yeah, me too. And I was very pleased. I recruited 4 people to do Catalina this year, and all 4 of them partnered. So it was two groups, 2 pairs, and I was really happy to see that. And I know at least 2 of them had been planning to do it solo, and I just kind of explained the benefit to them and what I perceived as the benefit. And I think for me talking about my relationship with Andy, someone who, yes, is such a different age from me and has such different life experiences from me and what I've learned from him and what he's learned from me, I think that was part of what convinced them. From talking to people, though, I think like from what I'm picking up on, the hardest part seems to be like one, finding a partner that's willing. If this is someone that swims and runs, that's already kind of rare. So if they have another friend that also swims and runs but isn't so dead set on triathlon, then they're kind of an island on their own. And just like I was going to sign up for Austin on my own until I cold emailed Andy, that's the situation a lot of folks are in. Like, I couldn't convince anyone to do this with me. But then I think the other barrier that I've seen people come across is just like, I can't find someone that's like the exact same pace as me. And I think that's where
Hmm.
it kind of comes back to that like missing the forest for the trees thing of being so focused on speed and like crushing this race that doesn't have a qualifying time, or you can't get a BQ for this, or you don't qualify for the world champs by getting a certain time at a certain race. So I don't know how we solve that problem of like people not being willing to take a potential cut in speed, which we don't even know that they would in some of these cases, but kind of being willing to take that risk to engage in the sport more fully.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris, as you were making your statement slash question, I was reminded back to what you were saying around the speed is the third thing on there. And if you kind of prioritize the experience of the event that you're doing over how fast that you can do it and how fast you can run and swim, if you're able to kind of get that mental priority or get that priority sorted in your head, I think you're more conducive to seeking out a partner and being willing to have that partner
Yeah.
aspect. I think the partner thing would really certainly make it an unforgettable athletic event. Maybe I've done too many athletic events, but I've certainly forgotten like some trail half marathon that I ran a couple of years ago. But like every swim run, there is something about it, about the race that I did it with Chris, races without, that I have a very memorable experience for, and that it has like stuck with me more, and it's more of like a deeply rooted experience for me. So like getting people to adjust that prioritization is, I think, maybe one of the first steps there.
I think that's right. And I think you could almost like to add on to that. It's like, and we've talked about this on the show since the beginning. Like, you want to race with someone, the first thing to do is kind of align on goals. Like, what are you trying to get out of this experience? So, in like the hierarchy of decision making, the top is like, what are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to set the world on fire? Are you trying to have an experience? Like, what is it? And if you can align on that, then I think once you get down into, oh, what pace are we going to run? Who's going to lead the swims? Who's going to do that? A lot of that stuff is just kind of details that you can just sort out if you can get the big stuff. And I've certainly found this, since
Yep.
racing with Viv in Austin, that was the one that had the least amount of like forethought. It's like we saw each other at the shakeout. It's like, oh, great to see you. We've interviewed for the show. We saw him at Worlds. Like I knew who she was. She was an acquaintance, swim runner. So she's already a kindred spirit. And, in about 20 minutes, it was like, oh, you're racing solo. I'm racing solo. You want to meet up? It's like, yeah, sure. Sounds good. It's like, oh, we got to come up with a team. Hey, what's your cell phone number so we can chat about this? It was like literally like that. And, it was interesting. The first thing we did was aligned on goals. It's like, well, what are you trying to do? I'm just trying to have fun. It's like, great, me too. Like I was going to race solo, but, like wasn't exactly looking forward to that. And from there, it's like, all right, well, I need you to lead the swims because I've been doing a lot of swim training. I'm like, okay, I can do that. And okay, what kind of pace you think you're going to run? I'm like, I don't know. Let's see what happens. Let's just go with the flow. Boom. There was our race plan. And didn't have to overthink it. But the thing that we aligned on, and afterwards we did well. I think we came in third place. I think you guys came in second and we came in third. It was like, hey, we hit all of our objectives, which a lot of them were vibe goals and sort of experience goals, and everything else is just kind of the details that unfold in race day anyway. Like you might think you're going to hold a certain pace, but maybe it's cold, maybe it's hot, maybe
Yeah.
you sprain your ankle, like the stuff you can't really control, but what you can control was again this higher level thing. And every partner I've raced with, including Chipper, like that's always been a thing. What are we trying to do here? And if you can align on that, then it's like, yeah, if your pace is off, significantly. Another example was racing Whistler with Annie. I was pretty injured. She was extremely fit on the run, and she was going to have to slow up for me, right? And it was just like, all right, well, that's just something she agreed to do, and I agreed to lead all the swims, and everything was hunky dory. But that was just details. Now, if on the goal she's like, I'm trying to win this thing, and I'm like, I'm trying not to aggravate my back injury, like that's problematic, and there's almost no
Yeah.
point talking about anything else.
Yeah. I think that I remember listening to one of the times that you guys talked about that on your podcast very early in my swim run career, this idea of aligning on goals. And I've used that many times to guide conversations with Andy, and then also used that when I raced with Megan in Whistler that year. And I think that that's such an important and helpful guiding principle. Like you said, so much else happens that out there that everything else kind of becomes secondary. I wish that we had a way. I'm thinking of how you and Viv connected because I was there as that was unfolding. And then I've seen other partnerships kind of come out of races, but I've also seen people come to races, not talk to many people, not really get into the community, which I understand can be
Hmm.
difficult if you don't know someone or you're not extroverted. So I've seen the two, right? I've seen people meet up at a race, not know each other that well, and decide to partner either at that race or the next one. But I've also seen people come to a race, not really talk to anyone, and leave with no real new connections. And so
Mhm.
I'm also wondering how we can continue to facilitate and foster those kinds of connections, like Chris, you and Vip had. And I even saw that Kayla just posted on her Instagram story the other day, like, I'm looking for a partner for Austin, and I know that
Yeah.
someone reached out and they partnered up. And like, I think Kayla is another person that's it. At least it seems to me, from what I know about her, is pretty encouraging also of that side of the sport as well. And so for her to just kind of put it out there, I think she
Hmm.
even said like no pace preference, not super worried about pace. Like, she put that goal out
Well,
there.
yeah, well, I have some
That was
background
good.
intel because the person she's racing with is a Bay Area native. Her name's Jen. She's super stoked on Swimrun. And
She
they
is.
met at Whistler at the shakeout. We're all hanging out. I'm talking to Kayla, and she comes up. I'm like, Kayla, have you met Jen? Jen's you're both pro triathletes or whatever. It's like
Hmm.
discuss amongst yourselves. And then basically, when Kayla was like, she'd love to do a race with her. So it was funny how the seeds were planted by the altruistic camaraderie of the sport. And then when an opportunity presented itself, it seems like a natural thing to do. And I'm sure they're going to
Hmm.
have an awesome race
I'm
because
Yeah.
sure
they're both
too.
beasts. Don't be
They
That's
are
still
surprised.
the
both.
vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think part of it is, especially for newcomers, it's important to acknowledge there's a lot, oh, this pull buoy, do I wear the paddles? Do I my shoes? All this. There's like so much newness trying to figure out for your first experience. And it's like, oh, now tie yourself to someone else and do it with them. And it's like I can't handle all this stuff. Let me just try to figure it out myself. So I totally understand why people come at it solo first and just take that path. I actually think like the shakeouts, and I know Marcus and Team Onville do a great job the day before, almost like make those shakeouts. Hey, hook up to someone you don't know and kind of just figure it out. And if you're trying to learn together, I think that could be a good way to kind of force a little bit of connection. And of course, people are
Yeah.
going to be more willing to hook their tether to someone they know. But if you could say, hook up with someone that you don't know
Right.
or is new, and that's going to kind of break through that ice, and maybe that is their first experience of like, oh, actually it's kind of, give them a nibble of what it is like to have that experience with a partner. Even if you're just doing
Yep.
a quarter mile run down and doing a little swim and coming back, you kind of get a flavor of what that experience is like.
And you know what, Chipper? And I think it's like to that exact point. Yeah, I can totally see as you're saying that. Yeah, if you're just like trying to figure it out, you don't want to embarrass yourself. You already think you look like an idiot. You're swimming with shoes on. It's like this kind of absurd thing. But I actually think by doing it with someone and sharing that absurdity, it actually kind of lightens the whole thing. Because Chipper,
Yeah.
when you and I were figuring it out, I mean, we looked like, I mean, we're like the only people in San Francisco swim running, and people were giving us all these looks. We just look like a couple of like I don't know what we look like. Like our joke is like we're like special forces, Navy SEALs, we're some sort of like super athlete or just weird. Like I don't know what people thought,
Probably
but
just
it was
weird.
just us. And the fact, I mean, if I had to do all those trainings by myself, I might have quit the game because it's just such a weird thing, right? It was just, I mean, especially back when we started out, it was just like no one. I mean, it was like so bad. Like when there would be other swim runners there, people who knew us would just assume it was us because why would there be any other swim runners in Aquatic Park than Chipper and Chris? I mean, it's comical in hindsight, right? But at the time, it's like, man, this is sad. It's like this. There's no one. So the fact that we were able to share that absurdity and the growing pains and the mistakes and just be able to kind of make fun of it, so I actually think it's a benefit. It's like yet another benefit of racing with someone because then you're not out there just embarrassed by yourself. You can just share the embarrassment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think also it that sense of camaraderie that you're speaking to, giving people a taste of that, I think could be extremely helpful because what I've heard from a lot of people that do it solo also is like, you're lucky to have a partner because it was lonely out there. I'm just alone with my thoughts.
Mm.
Like this kind of idea of like, I had to tolerate this discomfort by myself. And so by giving someone a buddy to at least then talk to after the race, if they do still decide to go for it solo, it's like an immediate connection. And I definitely try to like, if I bring someone new into the sport, I try to introduce them to every single person that I know at that race. And I think that can also go a long way of like us and other people who are like very
Yeah.
ingrained in the sport using that connection and continuing to bring people into it. I know you two are some of the biggest. I'm preaching to the choir here with you too. But another thing that like I wish was in more, and it's not something any of us can control, but I wish there was more systemic things that would encourage partnership,
Mm.
like having the world champs be a partnership. I know systemically is a huge encouragement because I know people who want to qualify, but know that it's a partner sport. So they're going to have to figure out how to race with a partner, who to race with, all those things that you figure out at the smaller races, they're going to have to figure out if they want to get on that big stage and do this hard thing. I wish that there were more systemic things in place that encouraged people to do it solo, to get into the sport, but also rewarded partnership over solo racing, for example.
Yeah,
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 like
for
some points, we don't have to solve this problem right now, but if the Ursula brass is listening,
it's beyond
some
our
like
pay
They
grade
might be.
anyway.
yeah, point like you get a point multiplier if you race as a team or something like, hey, solo, you get the 1 point for whatever, and then if you race as a team, you get 1.5 or something where you're able to kind of capture a little bit more points potentially. Certainly, the shift in the point structure to decouple it from actually being the team really, I think, accelerated some of the solo stuff, for folks who are curious about racing world champs, because previous to that change, you only earned points as a team. So you had to race like 2 or 3 races in the year as the low tide boys or as California Swimrun. And if you
Mhm.
raced with someone else, then it was like, oh man, we're not going to get our points or we're going to be able to qualify kind of thing. So it really, the point system was, previously had more, like you said, systematic things in place to kind of keep the teams together. And when you assign points to the
Right.
individual, I think that kind of made it a little bit more of it didn't emphasize that as much. But for better or worse, I think it certainly has gotten more solo people into the sport and people coming in to see what it's all about.
Yeah, now we just got to get those people to pair up.
That's right.
Yeah.
Not just for Worlds. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
interesting because the quality of participant at Worlds is still super high. I think that decoupling made sense just to reflect what a lot of the elites were doing in Europe, where they're mixing
Yep.
up and just racing in different categories and having fun with it, which is great. All the while knowing that they're already pretty experienced and are planning on racing Worlds as a team and some formulation. I like the idea of having a points multiplier if you're racing in the team category, just to incentivize people to race in the team category, especially if you're trying to stack points for Atala. Maybe not for like the rankings, because for example, Adrian Cameron from Run Hero here in the United States, like he's leading. He's also done every US race and has been dominating basically almost all
Yeah.
of them. So it's like, yeah, like he should win the points ranking because he's been the best athlete in the US and has raced a ton. But is he racing worlds or not? Like I don't know. I think maybe he wants to, but it's like those the fact that he's an awesome solo racer, that shouldn't necessarily disincentive, shouldn't be a disincentive for him to get to worlds, but there has to be some formula that helps promote the original thing, which is the team. But yeah,
Yeah,
we're
we'll
not we're
we'll
not going
figure
to
it out
solve
one
it.
day.
Yeah.
2026, we'll figure it out.
That'll be the year. That'll be the year.
Yep. 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 Yep.
Awesome. Well,
So
we
what's
know
what's
you're
oh
we were
sorry.
going to ask the same question, Chris.
I think we were.
Yeah.
Go for it.
You're not racing Austin this week, and unfortunately, you're doing some high rocks events, which I know you have participated in before. A little bit of a team sport as well. There, you can pair up and share your wall balls with somebody, but you still have to run the Ks together. What are you thinking for 2026 in terms of swim runs? I know you have your residency as well.
Hmm. Yeah, I know that the new calendar for the swimrun events just came out. So looking at that, there has been some changes with dates and some races that I was expecting to have that we're not having, sadly. Understand the decisions
Gee.
that they have to make. And I think some of the decisions they made, it sounds like they're doing in service of putting on larger events where maybe more people can meet and things like that. But sad that Catalina isn't coming back this year, it looks like. But yeah, haven't nailed anything down on the calendar yet, but I'll still be living in Seattle where I am currently when Orcas comes around a bit early next year. So I'm hoping to do Orcas. And if the timing works out to also do Bellingham, support local swim runs. I know that's
We'll
big
be
on
there.
here too.
Nice.
So would love
Love
to see you guys
Bellingham.
there.
You're in the Pacific
Um,
Northwest. It's like mandatory.
No excuse. No excuse. In fact,
it's
we met someone at the race this year who listened to the show and just happened to learn that Bellingham was happening like that weekend because we were hyping it up. And he signed up and
yeah.
he was like, I didn't even know this was happening. And I'm a swim runner in Seattle. So yeah, it's super fun. You'll love it.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm so excited and I'm hoping to recruit. I've actually met several people here in Seattle since I moved here that did swim run. I met them within the first month. I was connected to at least two people that did swim
Wow.
run, which was pretty cool. So I'm hoping to kind of drag them to Bellingham with me, even though they won't earn any points at Bellingham. But so that's kind of like my thoughts right now. I also want to do some longer distance trail running. I'm signed up for a 50K in February and just some other things like that. I try to make anything I sign up for kind of serve my swim running in some way. And being a lifelong swimmer, running is definitely the weaker of the two for me. So I'm hoping to get some more big runs in, maybe even longer than 50K this year would be really cool. But yeah, between now and February, focus is just on like getting strong, maybe building some running speed that will translate into a good season. Andy and I will be applying for world champs again this year. So it's a
Cool.
20th
Nice.
anniversary. So
Got to
Cool.
do it.
Cool. As you were saying that, I was thinking, yes, you don't get Attila points for racing Bellingham, but we do get karma points. Folsom,
mm-hmm,
major karma points.
Hmm.
mm-hmm.
Bellingham, major karma points.
Yeah,
Swimrun Lake James, like a huge mountain of karma points. So supporting local swim runs, you still get points, people. Do them.
yeah,
Yeah. And going to take us back to ones that you can get points on, but I completely forgot that I will most definitely be doing Colorado again next year. I loved that race.
yes.
Yeah, it
It
was
definitely
fun.
suited you with the heavy swim emphasis.
The early and often swim emphasis and the 5 miles of swimming was really in my wheelhouse. So I told Lars in person and then also in my review of the race, do not cut any of the swims. They were all vitally necessary.
Yeah, I'm actually curious, like how much feedback is like, hey, that was a lot of swimming, dude. We always ask for longer and harder swim runs,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, they gave it to us, so we feel like we can't really be complaining about it. But that 2 mile swim, that was the longest swim I think I've ever done in a swim run. It was something.
That was, I mean, we got out and I was like, damn, that was long. But hey, we just ran off and, I'm glad we just did it once. But overall, it was a good time.
That
When
that
will
was a
you
good one to
guys
just do once.
Yeah. Um, when will you guys, I want to blow up your spot, but when will you guys be talking about what you guys have in store?
Well, that's a good
I
question.
mean, you know,
Not
I don't
what,
know if
but
there's
when.
I don't know if there's some sort of exclusive on that stuff. I think given that Orcas is in the summer now, that makes it
Mhm,
much
Yes.
easier for us to coordinate, like maybe even bring families and things like that and turning it into a thing.
mhm.
I kind of did that for
Yeah,
Beth this year.
redeem that race for sure, personally.
Yeah, you know, we think there's some time left on the board on that one
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure. And it was just such an awesome race. Like, yeah, we did that once and it was extremely challenging, but it was just such a cool, the whole vibe of the whole thing was just awesome. So I think we'll
Yeah.
probably do that one. I'd like to do Colorado again, and certainly we're going to put our name in the hat for Worlds since it's going to be the 20th edition. So that's going to be super,
Yeah.
super fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, we end up being in, in Sweden 4 out of the last 5 years. I mean, who would have thought? Not me.
Not me.
It's
Certainly not me.
wild. It's wild. Well, Mara, thank you so much for coming on. This conversation has been a long time coming, even though we do talk to you all the time every time we see you. Um,
Yeah.
if you need good book recommendations, Mara is a good person for that as well. Thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, we'll see you. Well, I'll see you at Day of Andy. And yeah, we'll see you at a race or an event soon.
Yeah, I will see you guys soon. I'm so overjoyed that I got to see you guys so much this year. So, especially
Yeah, it's
at
been great.
World Champs when Chipper pulled me through. So, thanks, you guys.
Yes.
I've never gotten so much exclusive content from a race.
It's like, here, I'm your personal photographer, and
He's
Andy's
good
gonna
like
do
that.
crazy poses with hot dogs.
No.
We'll have to throw one in the show notes, people. Andy with a hot dog pose.
Sounds good.
I approve.
Okay. Done.
That's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a rating or review, since that's the best way to help other people discover the show and the sport of swim run.
Check out our website, lowtideboys.com. That's boys with a Z, for swimrun resources, including gear guides, tips, how-to videos, and so much more. Make sure to check out our meme page at The Low Tide Boys on Instagram. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, send us a DM or email us at lowtideboys@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Riding Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of our swim run and other activities.
Lots of activities.
Lots of activities.
Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
Then a run,
And then a swim,
then another run,
then another swim.
then run some more.
Just keep going.
Let's go.
And then stop at some point because,
And fuel. Don't forget to fuel.
Gotta fuel
Of
too.
course, yes.